Welcome to Lost Movie Madness with Akeem and Friends, and today I have a great guy on with me. His name is Aurelien. Say hello, Aurelien.
What's up, guys?
I need you to bring some more energy for me. All
What's
right?
up, guys? Let's talk about the movies.
We're going to talk about today a film that you recommended. And what film was that?
The Quick and the Dead, starring Sharon Stone, Leonardo DiCaprio, Russell Crowe. Interesting movie.
Is it interesting?
Well, we're going to get into it, but I personally believe that it's much better than it is. Like the story, at least, the concept is a lot better than the movie. So.
Well, I definitely think that you're right about that. Like, I watched it again because I'd seen it when it came out. And I thought, oh man, like, it's fun, right? It's a fun movie. You get it, the shoot 'em up, all the rest of it. And I haven't watched it in, I want to say 20 years. Because it came out in 95, right?
4 years before I was born.
Yeah, which is great. I was a fully grown person at that time. But I was like, you said you had watched it on, Netflix, right?
Yep.
And we were talking about my podcast, and I was like, I hadn't seen that thing in a while. And I was like, yeah. And, like, I'm a big Westerns guy. Like, I love Westerns. So, like, The Quick and the Dead is, like, right up my alley. You know? So I was like, okay, well, let me give that thing a look. And I did. And I thought it was great. I mean, not great. Let's just be clear. It is not a great movie. But I thought it was fun.
Yes.
And I thought there were a lot of elements to it that you can see on the side. I mean, the cartoon, I'm trying to make sense of it, and I'm trying to condense things, but hopefully the visual makes some sense, although I don't think it does. I don't think that the visual makes some sense, but I think it's the best I really could do with what I was working with.
For sure.
So, anyway, let's get into it. We'll talk about it real quick, and then we'll discuss some of the themes, because I don't think the story itself is really that intricate.
No.
You know? It's a classic, you know, good guy versus bad guy sort of thing.
Right. So I think the story is actually super intricate. I think there is so much going on in this movie, and they condense it down to like an hour and 20 minutes. And I think that this is one of those few movies. Usually I think movies are too long. I think this one is too short. I think there's so much going... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. Let me stop you, because you're young. You're young. So, movies didn't used to be so long.
Right.
Okay? Movies were always shooting for 90 minutes. So, it... Like, starting around, like... Well, The Godfather was one of those, like, prestige films. They know when they're making it, it's Oscar bait sort of thing. But for the most part, until... I want to say you started getting longer films like Titanic and things like that, and filmmakers got more leeway in their timing, so they could tell. They said, "Well, we can tell better stories if we have more time," which is sometimes the case, and sometimes not. Like most of the times, not. Most of the time, it's just padding and just like there's not enough. Really, it's like watching. Case in point, The Hobbit.
Yeah.
All right. If you watch the cartoon version of The Hobbit, it's great. It's an hour and a half. He's, kills Smaug, and, he's got his little, what's it called? His wasp thing, and he gets the chainmail and he goes home. Great. Right. They made three-hour movies of that thing. All right? All right. Three-hour movies. And I've seen them. And there's a lot of padding. Like, if you ever read The Lord of the Rings? Have you ever read those books?
I've never read The Lord of the Rings. I have read The Hobbit, though.
Okay. In The Lord of the Rings, I remember reading The Fellowship. And, like, there were a lot of songs. A lot of just, like, The Man Under the Hill. Just, like, nothing really that, like, it builds the universe.
Right.
But it doesn't push the story along whatsoever.
Right.
The basic thing is like, okay, well... How long, and listen, for anybody who loves Lord of the Rings, great.
There's a lot.
But for me, it's like 500 pages to get through the Fellowship. And at some point, I'm tired of you building the world. Let's get to it. Let's get some action happening. You know, if it's going to take you 600 pages, the same reason why like I haven't watched or read the Game of Thrones books. Nope, it's too much investment. I got to invest a lot of effort in reading them things. And quite frankly, my life is busy. I don't have the time or the energy to invest that much effort into a world that doesn't exist. At least, like, it's the same thing with DC and Marvel, right? I used to read DC comics. I used to read Marvel comics, right? But Marvel comics is based on this world, all right? DC, I got to figure out where Metropolis is. I got to figure out where Gotham is. I got to figure out where Metro City is. And they're still in New York City. Like, what the hell? How much time am I going to spend trying to figure out where these things are at? And why is there no interaction? Apparently, Gotham, Metro City, New York, freaking Metropolis are all like within a 200-mile radius. Jesus freaking Christ. On the East Coast.
If you're watching Batman vs. Superman, they're separated by a harbor. So.
Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's freaking ridiculous. It's too much for me. Like, I just have to spend too much effort trying to figure out where the hell things are. And like, I mean, I guess you have to do some world building, but when you spend that much time, or I've got to figure stuff out, it's a lot of work for me. And it may say something about me, but I'm not willing to put that much effort into my comics. Anyway, I'm sorry. We've gone totally off the rails.
Way off the rails.
We have not discussed this movie at all. So you want to tell us about the movie? What happens in it?
All right. So it starts off really weird because it's this guy who's like digging some stuff out of sand. He's worried about his money. This guy really doesn't matter to the movie at all, but he does introduce us to the main character, the lady, which is played by Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone happens to be the worst part about this movie, but she's also the protagonist. So,
is she? She is the least interesting character in this thing.
She's the protagonist. We will follow her around a lot. We'll get into this later, but I would have restructured the movie a little bit, and she would have been. I don't even know if she would have been in the movie, honestly. Like she does so little for it.
Is Russell Crowe necessary in this thing?
Yes, if you expand on him a little bit, because I think he had a lot going on for him. Because he plays this. He used to be a gunman for the main antagonist, Gene Hackman, who you get into some sad backstory, and he becomes a priest, and he swears off guns for a good 3 days.
Something like that.
He swears off guns for a little bit.
No. He swore off guns since the last time he saw Gene Hackman.
Right.
All right, so we don't get a timetable, but it's got to be years at this point. How he gets caught by Gene Hackman, God knows.
Well,
or maybe not. It's not really clear. It's not really that clear.
Right.
Also, Gene Hackman, before we move any further, all right, Gene Hackman runs this town with an iron fist, right? Gene Hackman is great in this thing. Now, if you've ever seen the early Superman movies, those things are crappy. But Gene Hackman? Oh, my God. From Hoosiers to those... Gene Hackman was a fantastic character actor. Yeah. You know, I think he's retired, or heaven forbid he might be dead. I should Google that. I don't want to put that on.
I believe he is no longer with us.
Really? That makes me very sad. I want
to say he died a couple years ago.
If he did, then God rest your soul, Gene.
No,
but he's amazing in this thing.
90 years old. I don't know who I was thinking
of. Well, that's probably why he's not acting anymore, but he's great in it. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Tell me about this movie.
All right. So where was I? So the lady pulls up into a town, and they treat her like a woman back in the 1800s or whatever. Not very nicely, unfortunately.
Yes.
And she ends up in this saloon where they announce this tournament, and presumably she's there for the tournament. It's never really clear as to why she's there, but presumably she is there for the tournament. You skipped over something. We meet the guy in the thing, and then what does she do to him? She knocks him off his ladder. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. But that's the very beginning.
Yes.
But it's unnecessary. That's the whole point. It is totally unnecessary for her to
Well,
meet that guy.
yeah, but he was being a dick. I think they were setting up the fact that there's a bunch of misogynists in this town. I think that's what they were doing, which
I
I
get
get.
that, but it's unnecessary.
Yes,
You get that plenty when she gets to the town.
correct, correct. I agree.
It's
But
unnecessary.
hey, but it also sets her up. Well, okay, I would say it sets her up as a badass, but she had already wrangled up that one guy at the beginning of the movie. So it's
It also
also
sets her up as a
unnecessary.
dick. It also sets her up as a straight dick.
Yes.
Like she's just not like like you're following her, but like was it necessary for her to chain him to the wheel? Not
No.
really.
No, that really didn't make any sense.
Other than to antagonize him,
Right.
not necessary at all. Like I'm just like okay, so he comes back, he gets shot, all right, but essentially he's a victim to her. Like she victimizes him. Yeah, he's a douchebag, but he was just minding his own business. She
And
changed him to the thing.
He does try to kill her.
Yeah, after she changed. Listen, she tried to kill him. He's in the desert, and she changed him to a fucking thing.
Yeah, but because that's because. Well, I think the reason was because he was shooting at her.
There's somebody riding this. Anyway,
Anyway,
she gets to the town. There's a tournament.
Yeah, so
right.
There's a tournament, and you meet. That's where you meet Leonardo DiCaprio, who is fantastic in this movie. I would argue he's fantastic in every movie. I haven't seen like some of the ones where he's not good in, but he's fantastic.
He's never not good in anything. He's always great.
Yeah, I'd say so. You meet the other, more pivotal characters, I guess, but they don't really matter. There's really only four characters that matter in this movie: Sharon Stone for some reason, Leonardo DiCaprio, Russell Crowe, and Gene Hackman. Those are the four that really matter. They do have other characters that are like used to set up whatever.
They're cannon fodder. They are cannon fodder.
Exactly.
We all know. So there's a tournament, a shoot 'em up tournament essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
it's a dueling tournament.
Yeah, fastest draw tournament.
Right.
And essentially, the main characters are just the fastest draws in the West.
Correct.
And
ungodly fast.
And there's a clock that you can hear on the like they start their shootouts on the hour, and you can hear it. And they always draw faster. Gene Hackman is the fastest, although Gene Hackman must have been, if this is 95 and he's 92, he must have been approaching 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, at that point. So, late 50s. Although he looks like a man in his late 50s. But apparently his hands are the quickest hands you might ever see. And he kills his son, played by Leo DiCaprio.
Yep.
And in the end, the last fight is between Russell Crowe's character, and you find out that Gene Hackman had rode into that town like 20 years earlier. I'd say 30 years earlier, looking at the age of Sharon Stone in this thing. and had chased off the marshal, who was Sharon Stone's father, and had given her he had, and who is the father in this thing?
I can't remember.
I can't remember his name, but he's a famous actor as well, and he has one scene, and she was like, your father can go if you can shoot the noose from around his neck, and he's like, baby, I believe that you can do it. And she closed her eyes, squeezed the gun, and shoots him in the middle of his head.
And she nails him. She fucking
Gary
Sinise.
Sinise.
Am I allowed to curse?
Gary Sinise. That's who the father is. One scene. Gary Sinise. Yes, please do.
She nails him in the middle of the forehead. Like, it was crazy. She just aimed a little bit higher. It would have been. I don't know.
Yeah. So she killed her father. And then in this thing, it's a weird thing. She doesn't want to become a killer. You already killed your father. I don't really know who else you could kill that could be worse than that. And anyway, she pretends to be shot and dead.
Yes.
And she comes back and she kills the bad guy. And the town goes back and has a marshal and everything's good.
Right.
The end. It's a fairly simple story. Everybody It's almost Hamlet-esque where a lot of people die. Leo DiCaprio's death was the saddest thing in this thing. Like
Yeah,
his death, and he's so young and he's so
he
fresh
and
faced.
man, he sells that so well too. Like it's
Yeah, makes
crazy.
you want to freaking cry.
Yeah, yeah. For a
Like
movie that should
it's
not make you want to cry.
he brings a lot to him and Gene Hackman. Listen, him and Gene Hackman in this movie without anybody else and just going through the tournament, like you got something special. You got something special happening there. He's a little too young at this point to really pull it off, but he takes you on the trip with the emotions and his motivations are there, the sort of internal stuff, the emotions that he wears on his face, the bravado, which you can tell is not real, but it's just bravado because you're a young man.
Right.
It's universal. Now, let's do our quick go over the acting. What do you think about the acting in the movie?
The acting, Gene Hackman, Russell Crowe, Leo DiCaprio, amazing. Everyone else, well, not everyone else. Sharon Stone, who's supposed to be like the
The
main
anchor,
character,
right?
just nothing. There's nothing there.
I would say I agree with you. Although I'd say Russell Crowe isn't that great in it, but I don't think Russell Crowe was given much to be great with.
That's the problem. I think if he had been given more to work with, he would have been able to
Russell
do
Crowe's
more,
barely a
obviously.
character in it. He just gets beat up and he doesn't want to shoot anybody. They don't
And
really
he's
give
really
him
good
much
at
to work
shooting.
with.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's really good at like these people. To be this good at shooting, you'd have to spend hours a day working on shooting.
yeah,
You know, although although I will say the Native American gentleman who can't be killed by the bullet is great in this thing.
yeah. That's very
Also,
funny.
the con like they're the convict, the black guy who's a hired gun by the town. They all are chewing the scenery. Everybody's overacting this thing.
Yeah.
The director of this thing did not say I want subtlety. He did not say that. He was
Yeah.
not. Speaking of direction, what did you think of the cinematography in this thing?
It's a little weird. It's just disconnected. It doesn't. I feel like the movie does not know what it wants to be. At first, it starts off as being this kind of wacky, goofy comic book movie, and then it gets real serious towards the end. Like the shots that they have at the beginning of the movie are just like they're close-ups on faces of reactions, and it's like, are you going for like a goofy comedy? And then towards the end, it's more serious and like, oh man, it's a western. Like this
I
movie just
think
does not. It needs to pick a lane, and it doesn't.
I think you're 100% right. I think what you're seeing is there's a transition that happens in the mid to late 90s where you've got the sort of MTV quick cut thing happening, right? But it doesn't really work in this context. And then when you get to the editing room, you go, "Oh, this is not skewing the way I want it to skew. All right, this
Right.
is not doing what I wanted to do. So, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to serious it up because it's a very serious subject that you're dealing with here.
Right.
And as wacky and as, the quick cuts and all how it makes the action look, it does not really work in this context. All right? The
No.
shots are well done. The cinematographer obviously gave what he was asked.
Right.
The second director gave what they were asked. It just doesn't work.
No.
So it makes the feel visually disjointed.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it was bad. I would just say the director and the producers did not really know what. Like when you get the dailies, you must have been seeing it, but when then you put it together in the editing room, you're like, we've got to do something about that ending because
Right.
that style of sort of crank, sort of frenetic style doesn't work in this setting. What did you think of the pacing of the story?
It's paced pretty quickly. I think the pacing is fine if you cut out a lot of the backstory on every character. You really have to really just focus on one character, and it can be that long. I think the sequence of events, like you create an emotional connection with Sharon Stone, which you don't really create that, but the emotional thing happens with her at the very end of like literally the last 10 minutes of the movie. You find out that her dad dies and she killed him, and it's like you haven't been able to build up that connection with the character that you should have been able to build more towards the beginning. I just think the movie, like, there's just a really great movie there, that you have to like pick apart to actually get to.
I think the pacing was fine. I think you're right about it. I don't think that you introduce her motivation early enough for us to give a shit. Like that, quite frankly, you don't introduce it. So until you give us that motivation, you just spend a whole bunch of time wondering why she's trying to kill this guy,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
you can tell she wants to kill him, and you're giving us that, but why? I
Yeah.
mean, he's a dick, but like, why'd you come to this town? Like, why do
and
you
I
care about
Yeah.
any of these people?
Right. And I've thought about it a lot more than I probably should. And I think the movie only gets better if you give her that motivation at the beginning of the movie. I think it
Yeah, yeah.
only gets better.
You have to get all that stuff with Gary Sinise. You need to get that very early,
Yeah.
and if you put that in the beginning, and then she ties the guy up. Now you get a she's not an asshole. She's
Right.
just trying to get in the tournament and making sure that there's a reason why she can't get in the tournament. You do that in the front of the movie, then everything sort of clears up.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's some problems. There are a lot of problems, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Um, but let's finish up our little thing. What
Yep.
would you recommend it?
If you're looking for a quick Western movie that you can watch, I mean, I watched it an hour before going to bed. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun. It's entertaining. It's got guns. It's got Leo DiCaprio. Yeah, I'd recommend it. If you're looking for a serious True Grit, something like, yeah, you can really sink your teeth into, no, please don't. Please do not watch this movie.
I personally, like I said, I would recommend this movie. Like you said, it's not the greatest film in the world. I think it's very enjoyable. It's a quick watch. You know where it's going.
Yep.
It's not going to challenge you in any way, but I think it's fun and it's entertaining, and that's what we're looking for in our movies. It's
Yep.
entertaining. Now, before we talk about a bunch of other stuff here, I'll say that IMDb gave it. I always give the ratings, what people thought of it.
For
Um,
sure.
IMDb gave it 6 out of 5. It's got a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.5 4 out of 5 on Common Sense Movies. So that's what they thought. I think, and I wanted to touch on something that you said. I think there's a great movie here. I
Yes.
really do.
Yes.
I think that you're just a couple tweaks away from it being a great movie. The first problem is Sharon Stone.
Yes.
Just like this is a Sharon Stone vehicle. We're trying to get her over. We're trying to um, work with her star power, put on a marquee. All right, Russell Crowe's up and coming at the time, and you're still dealing with all the other stuff. But in the end, I think that it's a great movie just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like I really believe that. What do you think?
So I think yes. Well, first, I have not watched a movie in a long time where I felt like,
At this point in the video, we lost sound, and Aurelien patiently waited for me to get it back up so we could continue our discussion. There is some audio quality difficulties in the second half of the podcast, but we did our best. So back to me and Aurelien talking about The Quick and the Dead, 1995, here on Lost Movie Matters.